Thank you so much, Natalia. Well, it's my pleasure to host such a great panel today. And I'm really looking forward to the next 60 minutes of this exciting discussion. Why don't we start it this way? Right? I'll ask each of you not so really professional questions, just so that the audience can appreciate your experience and also a little bit of your personal side to it. And who better than Leslie to start with? Leslie, you have very interesting profile, right? It's the first time I heard this word called neophile. It's always good to learn new words. So you define yourself as somebody who's a neophile, which is someone who's really attracted or in love with newer technologies. And you've had more than 3 decades of experience. And currently you're working with Nokia, you're working across the ecosystem. So I would really want to ask you, what do you think are the key highlights in your career? And also what are the fundamental building blocks of network in the future?
Thank you so much, Sidhant. So I actually just passed my 21st anniversary with Nokia. I joined in 2000. Awesome. So I've been here for a long time, always on the network side. And just to remind everybody, we sold the handset business to Microsoft in 2013. So we're a network company, okay? So we have the worst brand problem in the world. But my role is I'm head of ecosystem and trend scouting here at Nokia, and so what I do is I look at the industries outside the telco industry to look at the new innovations that are happening there and what other industries are expecting our networks to do for them. And so therefore, so understanding what other industries are expecting of us helps us build the networks that will then be useful and monetizable going forward. So I'm trying to create that bridge. And the main things that I'm seeing right now, particularly with the enablement of 5G, the network of the future is really, aside from all of the network details that I'm sure others of you will talk about, but looking at it from the outside, what others are excited about 5G is about the power of the edge, and specifically the power that 5G brings to do what I call splitting the chip. In other words, instead of having like a really fat, expensive heat generating chip in an end device, having the minimum processing in the end device, say in a robot or a drone or a head mounted augmented reality device or a camera for visual analytics, and then having 5G connect to servers sitting somewhere in the network, whether at the edge or further in, depending on the latency needed, and having those servers actually do the work. And so what you get is actually a more intelligent end device, because now you're able to pull on more computing, but it's a cheaper, lighter, longer battery life for that physical end device. And 5G is the absolutely necessary glue for that. The robotics industry is counting on this. The drone industry is counting on this. The head-mounted VR and AR device industry is counting on this. The cloud gaming industry is counting on this. And the visual analytics industry is counting on this. And so all of these, so we need to make sure that we understand the edge, and build and focus on that, because that's actually going to be where a lot of the new money is going to be generated with our new networks. And so just kind of a shout out here to kind of edge enablement platforms like Nokia's own, our industrial IoT and data edge platform, which is called MXIE or MXIE, but also the focus on the edge is opening up the opportunity for new players, which we also have to be cognizant of and, cautious, excited, but NVIDIA, for example, they have their Cloud XR open platform for edge computing to allow the creation of, or the streaming of, very large graphics to come to, say, VR headsets at the edge. These are new players that are coming into what has traditionally been a telco space. And so it opens up opportunity, but also with new players, there's always going to be disruption. So we'll just have to see what happens.
Great, Leslie. I really love the passion with which you described each of those areas, and really look forward to more of such insights as we move forward into the detailed section. Arun, I would like to come to you now. I think we've known you from before, and you've been, if I remember right, more than 2 decades, 25 years in this area. I've known you to do multiple things, right? Look at tech, look at marketing, look at sales. You have worked with multiple players, looked at multiple technologies. So I think you have a very unique perspective to this, because you viewed this from almost every different type of lens. Now you're part of Radisys. So how are you helping network service providers in that transformation towards this, what we are calling the network of the future?
Thank you. Thanks, Sidhant. First of all, thank you for the opportunity. Many of you may not know, Radisys is part of the JIO Platforms Limited, which is the holding company that also is JIO as an operator is part of, and in which the big the Facebooks and the Googles and others have invested in as well. Like you said, in my previous life, I had been part of the vendor ecosystem, right, as a network gear, R&D to system integration services. But when I joined JIO and Radisys, the main reason I joined was that this was about in 2019, and the JIO has already disrupted the Indian market. And there has been a lot of interest from global operators across the globe in terms of how did JIO do this, and to repeat this success of JIO in other markets. They wanted to create a proper channel, and hence I joined. And when JIO acquired Radisys, we created this network services and consulting business as a business vertical or a business unit. What we are doing, today what we are doing is we are taking some of the key learnings of the JIO disruption, and we are taking to the other operators, and we are helping them to repeat the success. So some of the, if I would like to point out, there are about 4 main key areas where we are helping. And number one, the JIO's speed execution. JIO have built a network that is today 300,000 plus cell sites and about 500,000 small cell, large cell sites, all in a matter of a few years. A larger network than, we carry more data than all the American operators put together today, serving 400 million subscribers, who each of them consuming more than 12 gigabytes of data per month. And that speed is because of the processes and the organization and the focus. So that's the project execution focus and the systems that we have used and the processes that we use. So this is something that we are taking. Second is about the scale. At peak point of time, at peak, we were signing up 1 million subscribers per day. So we had to look at our processes and systems and look at how we are able to reduce the friction of signing up new subscribers. Basically, just to give you pointers, like we distributed more than 1 million fingerprint readers and linked with the Indian other systems, and you are able to get verify and validate the subscribers and sign them up in a matter of minutes, not a matter of hours or days. That's the speed and the scale, and the third is the innovation in terms of disrupting the way we do the pricing and positioning. Before JIO, the other operators in India used to sell a package of 1 GB with a validity of 1 month, or 5 GB with a validity of 3 months. People used to conserve and consume, whereas we totally changed that as a pricing scheme. We said that you get for X rupees, you get 1.5 GB per day for 30 days, 29 days. That is like 45 GB per month. But you have to use all of that 1 GB in a single day. So, use it or lose it type of a model that we completely inverted that. And that is changing the behavior, user behavior. And finally is the way we approach our and build and operate our network. We built right from the beginning an automation focused network. So the per GB production cost is our mantra. How do you optimize this? How do you reduce this? Right from build to operate. So completely automated. So like for example, we invested in simplicity. That means there is no complaint. All LTE, all IP, no voice, all voice over IP, all voice over LTE kind of network that we built. And those are the things that we are now taking to other operators who wants to repeat the success elsewhere.
Excellent. Excellent, Arun. Really looking forward to your insights as we move forward. I will come to Ritesh now. Ritesh, you had an interesting career graph. You worked with some of the most exciting network equipment folks, including Cisco, Huawei's of the world. And now, in the middle of the pandemic, you have jumped into, to Jio, which is like a super operator more than anything else. And not just that, you're trying to focus on an area which all operators across the globe have found to be a big challenge, right? Nobody seems to have cracked it yet. They're all looking at it new. You're looking at enterprise, and you're looking at enterprise services and products. So I just wanted to pick your brain. Why don't you enlighten us on why everyone is looking at enterprise, and what do you think are some of these key use cases, especially from an enterprise perspective, that will come in as we get into the network of the future?
Absolutely. Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me here. I focus on enterprise solutions at Jio. A quick update on Jio. It's true that we have the fastest, largest, and deeply peered network and all these subs. But obviously, we believe that the next phase of growth is going to be enterprise. And that's where we are focused on. We offer all the traditional telco services like wireline and wireless networks, connectivity services and so on, Office 365, the usual packages, bundles. But we are looking at the future. We are looking at what else we can do, for example, for machine-to-machine, smart cities, autonomous cars, and IoT applications. We recently announced a Tata Power in Delhi as a customer. So what they had was they had installed all these smart meters all around Delhi, about 2.3 lakh smart meters, and they wanted to get it online. And obviously, they realized that Jio has we have the largest narrowband network in the country. And so one way to do that was to get on our narrowband IoT network. And so they were quickly able to get all of those smart meters online. So we are looking at use cases which are futuristic. We announced a partnership with MG Motors to use our IoT solution for connectivity, infotainment, and telematics in their connected cars. And everyone obviously is aware of our 5G efforts and our partnerships and so on. We are heavily focused on automation internally and one-click deployments. The reason is we want the end user to have the experience that they can, upgrade, downgrade, change, or modify anything at will when needed, instead of having the traditional way, when you called up an operator, you waited for a couple of months and then got the service, or, someone came over and installed things. We want to move away from those and move into a futuristic solution where we have, everyone. We want to bring 10x speeds at 1/10 the cost, but we want everyone to have a superior experience online so that they can do what they want to do for their businesses and innovate. And we have a lot of course, things going on to get that done. And of course, I'll talk about it soon.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ritesh. Paul, I will come to you now. I think you've also been doing really interesting things. You had the title of someone who heads transformation for more than a decade across 3 companies. Right, you're now at BT again doing transformation. So I really want to understand, what is it, over these years. How is what is the big transformation that has happened? And more importantly, how do you see this transformation going in the future? What is it that you're really trying to work on and guide the future of network on?
Okay, thanks for the intro. It's really good to be here today. So yeah, as you say, I'm a transformation director. It's within BT's network division. So my team runs some of the large transformation programs that cross the whole business. So in particular, legacy product retirements, legacy network retirements, and it was referenced earlier. PSTN shutdown and shift to all IP products and networks. So that's one thing I'm working on currently. So yeah, we ensure we have strategic products to migrate customers to before we shut down the legacy, and it's all about ensuring that customers have a great migration process and experience throughout the journey. As you say, I've been in other sort of telcos in the UK as well, and most recently in BT. And then I guess just some thoughts. I think the key focus has got to be customer centricity. So there's got to be something that benefits the customer in addition to just the operator. So ideally, the migration would be customer pull rather than operator push, and that means having attractive products, with benefits to the customer. And specifically in all IP, it's a great opportunity for us to, in particular, have a conversation with our enterprise customers about how we can make their business more effective and efficient through unified comms, collaboration, productivity solutions, etc. So this, legacy network retirement should be a win-win situation for all parties, really. Customers get better products, operators get lower costs, and also the environment and sustainability as well. These legacy networks are very power hungry. So there's good sort of benefits to the environment to be made there. So very relevant discussion I think we're having today.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Paul. Those are very useful. Aashu, I will now move to you. You have been, again, part of the telecom industry for more than a couple of decades. I've known you to work with almost every large enterprise on the network side, at least for a very long time. And that gives you a very unique perspective of not just one firm, but, working almost simultaneously with many of the others. So I would really like to understand from you, have you seen a real shift, especially in the last 6 or 8 quarters, maybe post-COVID or just before that, in the way your customers or network companies are actually approaching this transformation? Has it slowed down? Are they really gung-ho about it? What do you think is this a future, and especially from a transformation perspective?
So thanks, Sidhant. Thanks for the opportunity. And I'm delighted to be among peers who've all done great things. So it's a good question you ask, and I'm glad you bring in the enterprise angle, and I think Ritesh touched upon it a little bit as well, because in my view, transformation cannot happen unless there is a robust network underneath, right? And we have sensorized or connected either thousands of endpoints or tens of thousands of endpoints, whether it's one-way traffic or two-way traffic, right? So we're talking about OT networks, right? So whether you're collecting data from a sensor or whether they are actuators, where they're actually moving an arm, like a robotic arm, right? And then by way of background, right? Cyient operates in 10 verticals, from utilities, mining, aerospace, medical devices and technology, communications. And if you look at all those 10 verticals, the way I would describe them to you is these are all asset-heavy industries. You won't find a bank or an insurance company in our portfolio. Those are all not sort of asset-heavy. Given we operate in the asset-heavy industries, where is the shift, you ask, right? And that was your question. So for better part, more than 2 decades, 22 years, we are 30-year-old now. So for 22 years, we have served 35 of the largest CSPs in the world. We have helped them build out their fiber networks. We have helped them decommission legacy. We have helped them densify the 5G. And then this is going on. There is a natural growth within this business that's a healthy trajectory. But to your point, in the last 2 years, something dramatic happened. Most of our large enterprises, so we have about 300 customers on our roster, 150 of them are large, and you would recognize the name if I told you whether it's, Boeing or a Pratt & Whitney or a Rio Tinto or, pick any of the Philips. Almost half of these large customers are now on a journey to become telcos in their own right. And there is a deep significance to what I'm saying. We are now engaging in a telco conversation with, for example, we serve 30 of the largest utilities on the planet. 20 of them are in North America, right? And if you go, read about it, next week, I'm at a conference which is focused on private networks for utilities, organized and sponsored by utilities. So now there is a birds of a feather session happening within the utility crowd. All of them want to be telcos in some way, and they are. Many of them have acquired spectrum. Many of them are building fiber to the last mile. They are thinking about, advanced metering infrastructure. In fact, the example Ritesh was giving, right? Some of them will do it in concert, in partnership with a CSP, where the CSP will move fast enough at their pace. And in other cases, countries like, UK, Germany, US, Japan, there are cases where you have now spectrum available for enterprise transformation. And many of these customers are leaping ahead, and they're beginning their own journey. So if you talk about my own role, on one hand, I look outward and we try to serve these large CSP accounts and help them grow. And then that's a natural business. But in the last 1 or 2 years, we are now looking inward, and we have shortlisted 40 of our own accounts who are looking for almost a CSP-like behavior, a CSP-like solution. So they want to become their own CSPs, right? So what does it mean? Well, today we think of the world and we think of 40 to 50 large CSPs, and there's an exponential drop off. After that, you can count many hundreds, but after 40, 50, they become really small, right? But now, if you think of the Fortune 500 organizations, right? So you can almost imagine, a Boeing or a Pratt and Whitney or a Exelon Utility or a Philips Healthcare being their own telco provider. So this, I think, is a big shift if you think about it from an enterprise perspective. And then, where we can talk about much more, but we're talking, mission critical OT traffic, not just IT traffic, where it matters, what the latency is, where it matters how quickly the round trip. And I think Leslie was alluding to some of those points earlier. So more on that later, but I just wanted to, your question was, what's the shift in the last 2 years? This honestly did begin in the last 2 years. So,
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Aashu. What I'll do is I'll now just switch gears and move into slightly more detailed questions on the topic that we wanted to discuss on, networks of the future and also sustainability. So Leslie, with your perspective of, working and looking at multiple portions of the ecosystem, I'm sure you have your ears very much on the ground. And one of the biggest thumps that we hear from the ground is about being sustainable, being green. Going by that theme, why do you think it is important from a telecom player's perspective to be sustainable, and what portions of the value chain do you think we could still work on to make it green?
Well, and thank you so much for giving me that question, because Nokia as a company, we're based in Finland. The Nordic countries traditionally have a strong awareness of man's relationship to nature, and Nokia is no exception. I've got my numbers here, so let me make sure I get the numbers right. We actually, now, the 5G itself on the headline sounds really good, because the amount of energy to deliver a single bit of data, I think Telefonica showed, in our work with Telefonica, we showed it's a 90% energy reduction per bit of data. The problem is with 5G, you consume a lot more bits. So you can have a nice headline, but the reality is you're actually consuming more energy. Yeah. So we decided to cut right through that and not kind of, play with the fancy headlines. And this is where I want to get the numbers right. We have made a commitment to cut our absolute emissions by 50% before 2030. And specifically, we made a commitment earlier this year to cut our 5G base station emissions by 50% by 2030. 2023. So I want to get those numbers right, because that's legal stuff. And so we are absolutely committed to doing this, and that's all kinds of things about automation and digitization and analytics is really where we're actually driving that within the network. But what we're also seeing is that there's a huge call for bigger thinking about sustainability, and the ways that you use the networks and what you use the networks for can very much contribute to sustainability. So, for example, we're working with a company called Aero Farms in northern New Jersey, just outside of New York. They have taken abandoned industrial warehouse properties and turned them into farms. And in these so basically a big factory, and they've just basically got trays of seedlings growing and producing food. And you can actually, from the same footprint of land, you can increase the productivity by 390 times. Now, the thing is that these trays are stacked up to the ceiling in these super tall factory areas. And the way that we actually manage this, where we help, is with, actually, Aashu was talking about, private 5G networks. They have a private 5G network that is used to have drones that go and fly to the trays of seedlings up at the top and do visual analytics to make sure that everything's okay, and to monitor the growth and everything. And so that's the kind of application of the new technologies that we can do to really contribute to sustainability. But then looking at another place that's a real, the elephant in the room as far as the whole computing industry goes is data centers. Data centers throw off so much heat and and take so much energy. Google happily has just started, I think just this week, they announced that they're creating a tool so that customers can see how much their use of Google Cloud, what carbon emissions, so let's get all that out there and let's open it. But we actually are also working with Google, companies like us and Google, are experimenting with putting data centers into cold environments and then using nature to help nature by experimenting with having cold lake water be the circulating coolant in our data centers, or just opening the windows and having cold air that is produced by nature be what's cycling through our data centers. But an even more exciting project that's one of my favorites, we're working with the town of Lyseparken in Norway, and that is a new town that is being created around a data center. So there's a data center that's in the middle, and it's all the data, and it's throwing off a ton of heat. And what they're doing is they're using that heat to heat water that is then piped through the community, and then that provides the heating in the businesses and the homes of the town. And then when it cools, it comes back into the data center and gets heated up again. And so it's an excellent reuse of the natural heat that's thrown off by the data centers. And so this whole exploration of liquid cooling is something that we're also very interested in our own networks. So those are all examples of sustainability. And I got a ton more, but I'll let somebody else talk for a while. But anyway, lots of exciting things happening in this space.
No, that's really, really great, Leslie. Honestly, I never knew that the telecom folks are actually thinking so much about making things green. That doesn't get reported too often, so it's really heartening to see all the great things that you're doing. Yes.
Yeah, well, actually, it was mentioned earlier. Ash, actually, you mentioned that there's kind of the push and the pull. Some of this is coming from regulators. Some of this is coming from our customers demanding it of us. And others is coming from our own, like, we don't want to be the ones that burn down the planet, so let's do what we can.
Absolutely, Leslie. That's very, very good to hear, and I think a good place for us to have started this detailed conversation. What I'll do is I'll move to the next area, and we talked about sustainability, and we have a few more questions around that. But I'll move to one of the areas where we want to talk about. So Ritesh, I'll maybe come to you for this one. What do you think are some of the common challenges faced by telecom service providers and also the enterprises that you are trying to work with in terms of planning, building, and even migrating to many of these, newer 5G, intelligent, automated, and even sustainable networks?
Yeah, no, good question. There are obviously many challenges that we see in operator and enterprise networks, despite all the availability of these different technologies and so on. The top ones which we like to educate our customers and also are very aware of and have to work with is designing for redundancy, cybersecurity, and costs. For example, if you look at even the latest outage at Facebook, which happened last week, earlier this week, once connectivity was lost, there was no way to get back and even modify the routers without physically going to the site to restore services. And we want, to have like 5G connections to these sites or so on, so that we can have, other ways of getting back and design for redundancy. Even the same thing, the National Stock Exchange of India outage earlier this year, both telecom provider links were affected due to construction issues, and they had redundancy. They had connections from two different telecom providers, but still they were down for such a long time. And mainly because you have, of course, even, physical, when wired connections share the physical paths, even if they're from different, telecom providers, that's not redundant. So we want to build for redundancy right in the design. And even for cybersecurity, if you look at cybersecurity breaches, most of them are due to human negligence or because there's no backup in the design. The classic example is the Colonial Pipeline attack in the US. Once they were hit by ransomware, there was no way to recover from that or get their data back without paying the ransom. They actually ended up paying ransom. And finally, costs of services. You spoke about 5G. There is no point in us or any other operator building a 5G network unless you can give everyone feature-rich 5G phones. Most 5G phones which are available today are beyond the price point which a general consumer in developing countries can afford, which is why we are so obsessed with having phones at right price points. And we also need them to be feature-rich. There's no point in us giving 2G phones without screens and giving a 5G network. I mean, that's not taking advantage of 5G capabilities. So cost is another thing which we are very aware of. So redundancy everywhere, cybersecurity, and high cost, those we feel are the top challenges from designing, both from enterprise and from service provider perspective in everything we do.
Thank you so much, Ritesh. I think that was very insightful. You actually clearly broke it down into 4 top challenges. Paul, I would come to you now, right? And I'm sure you have seen this as you look in your role as looking at newer areas, transformation, etc. What, according to you, are the biggest challenges in this and your customers are facing?
Sure. Yeah, and I definitely recognise the challenges that we just touched on. I think another one is getting the customer experience right. Network migration it's a big exercise. Sometimes it's touching. In BT, we do migrations that touch pretty much all of our customers, from consumers to businesses. So, I guess as I was saying before, these large scale migrations they work best if they're customer led, and that means having the right products to meet customer needs, but also a great migration experience as well. And the ongoing service experience after migration has to be good. And there's a challenge, doing this at scale. It's easier to do when you're doing one customer here, one customer there, but sometimes you're moving millions of customers from one network to another. And you're dealing with a spectrum of customer knowledge. There's potentially consumers who aren't very tech savvy, through to large national infrastructure customers. So ideally you'd be tailoring the migration journey to each customer, but you need to be able to scale it at the same time. So it's kind of providing that balance. So you've got to get your communication strategy right. Somebody earlier talked about getting the data and the inventory correct before you embark on the migration. And sometimes for vulnerable customers, you have to provide some extra support, right up to sending an engineer to their premise at some time. So it's about really giving a good customer experience throughout the migration journey.
Excellent, Paul. Arun, in your mind and in your experience, what are some of the strategies that are actually being implemented by companies to solve the challenges that both Ritesh and Paul have discussed right now?
Absolutely. So in terms of the security and redundancy, some of the things that I'll go back to, because most of our knowledge is coming out of Jio, and I'm going to cover some of the things that Ritesh did not, Ritesh wanted to allude to. Is one of the things that the way we are building redundancy is that in our network design, we have built a strategy with what we call as 1 CNO, 2 CNO, 3 CNO, 4 CNO. That means 1 cut, not out, 2 cut, not out, 3 cut, not out, or 4 cut, not out. That's the kind of a redundancy that we build, that when when a network is going to be, fiber cuts are galore in India, in Indian context. So that is something so we build redundancy into the network design itself. Second is about automation around the software updates and upgrades. One of the biggest bane of traditional network is that the software is not up to date. You look at all the software security breaches that you see, very often that is because of the software is not updated, when the vulnerability is not up to date. So we have a stringent automated software upgrade policy that is, we just go very regimental about it. There is no compromise on that. And coming to the cost aspects of it, and actually this also is very relevant and related to the sustainability as well. And there is a public report that GSMA has done a case study on what Jio had done. And for those of you who have not done it, Jio has done a phenomenal amount of work, pioneering work around cost, energy management. So we turned down some of the frequencies in main key areas between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. And that gave us 3 to 4% of cost reduction. Similarly, we were the very early and probably first one to introduce lithium-ion batteries in our cell sites, and instead of the diesel generators. And we let, when there is a power outage, we let the lithium-ion batteries be the primary fallback. And then when it comes down to 60%, then we switch on the diesel generators. But we don't charge these lithium-ion batteries with this diesel generator. We charge the lithium-ion batteries with EB power, the power coming from the electricity board. So like that, there are a very intelligent power management, battery management systems that we have. We have been able to get rid of a lot of diesel generators. We have been able to optimize the use of diesel. And all of this put together, we had saved more than 370,000 tons of CO2. And so that's a kind of but it is not just, sustainability doesn't mean that it is pure. It's also good business because we're able to reduce a significant amount of power cost. Because many of you may know already that it is, the 15 to 40% of the OPEX is energy. Okay. So depending on where you are and so this is these are some of the strategies that we employ to to address those challenges that Ritesh and Paul talked about.
Excellent. Arun, I think that was very lucid, the way you described, almost one-to-one on, how do you, every mitigation for almost every challenge we discussed. I think that was very informative, Arun, and very clear. Thank you so much for that. Aashu, I will come to you, and I do want your comment on the same question because you have a unique perspective looking at different type of companies. At the same time, we have a very interesting audience question as well, maybe in line with the theme that you spoke about earlier. And the question is from Doug, and what he's asking is, in the theme of if I knew then what I know now, what will be the major challenges to the communication industry regarding network upgrade and decommissioning over the next 5 years? So I would want your take on that as well. And you can please add on the challenge part and the mitigation of these challenges, and then please take up this question.
Certainly. So I'll do both, but to continue the thread that Ritesh, Paul, and Arun talked about, right? If you put an enterprise lens on some of these networks that are being built, right? So we have customers who solve the security problem in a very different way, or a breach problem in a different way. There are customers who are so particular about traffic not leaving their premise, not leaving their control. They want the entire network in a closet within their facility, which is key card access. So you can't talk about a cybersecurity hack if there is no physical access to the building, right? And the only thing, or the only time something can leave the traffic is everything goes to a central server where it's monitored double, triple times to figure out why is this email leaving the premise. Because we're talking about, industrial design. I mean, Cyient as an example, we build 22% of an airplane engine. And there cannot be any kind of leakage, of data, of anything. So you can understand why some of our customers are so particular about security. They'll take the ISO standard for security, and then they'll have another rider that those guys have created on top of it. So we are complying with more security than the classic CSP example. The other thing, and I think Paul alluded to it, and this also almost factors in as step one of decommissioning, but understanding the logical and physical inventory. I think you can go do a survey of, as you know, you are within your right to go talk to any number of CSPs and then find out how many of them truly know what are the assets they own. And I bet you in the high 90s, CSPs will not know where the assets are, how old the assets are, which assets are connected to where. There is obviously a decoupling between the logical network inventory and the physical network inventory. And there are some certain solutions we build to accurately detect, apply ML, machine learning technologies to auto-detect assets, and then do a matchup between what the customer thinks is the inventory and what is the as-built inventory. And then we have a whole practice around inventory precisely for this reason. And after we do that discovery, customers often realize they can actually be more sustainable by turning things off that weren't connected to anything or weren't really serving a very useful purpose, or you had this one customer in a remote site, which can be served another way. So that much I'll say on, and I like, I think Arun's example of intelligent battery management system. We have customers, if you look at Australia as an example, Western Australia, it's mostly desert. You have large number of villages, but each village maybe 1,000 or 2,000 people, right? And if you think of a utility provider that is trying to do grid management or providing power, how do you effectively do that, especially when grid is now becoming a two-directional grid? So it's not one source and many distribution points. Every rooftop becomes a source, because of solar. And now the grid has to do back and forth. So now you need a network that can actually talk, in both directions. So interesting challenges if you think about the same network problems from an enterprise perspective, and how do you design for it? So I can go on and on, but let me cover Doug's question. If I knew today what I knew, or if I knew then what I knew now, right? I can give you a couple of examples from some of our large CSPs. COVID happened, 18, 19 months ago, and the race to build fiber. That's one of the key bread and butter businesses we have. We hired. These are signed stats, and these can be confirmed. I think in the last quarter, we hired 800 people. In this quarter, we hired 500 people. We cannot put people on our staff fast enough. The demand from 6 CSPs suddenly went through the roof because everybody was at home. I have 3 boys, and a wife that works, and all 5 of us want to be on Zoom sessions, whether for classroom or for work, and video is becoming a predominant. Suddenly, 200-300 megabit speed is not enough for us. So everybody wants fiber. Everyone's going on to the customer sites and figuring out when fiber can be available. If you look at John Stankey's investor relations, one of the first slide he uses. AT&T wants to add fiber to about 3 million households in 2021, and then they want to double their entire fiber footprint in the next few years, right? So everywhere there is going to be fiber. How do you even build a 5G site without backhauling fiber to it, right? So when you think of 5G rollout, getting fiber to the places, and the same conversation is happening with the utility companies. They are now getting into the fiber build-out business. So to answer Doug, if people had known, they could have forecasted this demand, sorry, I can't speak, much earlier, and there would have been a gradual ramp up. And now suddenly, the switch is on, right? So the floodgates on. I need this now. I need this yesterday. How much more can you do? So that's sort of one example. I thought it was interesting because we are living this. We're living that episode right now. So I'll give the floor back to you, Sidhant.
Absolutely.
Yeah, actually, if I could.
Please.
Sorry, if I could just comment real quickly. Yeah, absolutely. We at Nokia, we thought 2020 was going to be the year of 5G, and it turned into the year of fiber. Absolutely. Yeah. Because it was when we all got sent home, nobody cared. When the school children got sent home, suddenly the governments of the world are like, oh, our children must be connected. We need fiber everywhere, and government mandates, and that changed everything.
Interesting. Great, Leslie. So just hang on, Leslie. My next question is to you.
Okay.
So we spoke about the challenges and some of the very interesting ways that people are trying to mitigate them. And Arun spoke about some really earthy kind of examples around that. At the same time, from your perspective, how do you think newer digital technologies and better processes or better kind of tools are actually helping companies like yourself solve some of these challenges?
Yeah, I mean, the word process is so important, and always keeping a new mindset. One of the problems, Arun, your description's exactly just the spaghetti back end that happens over time at every CSP as stuff stacks up and people, lose track of what's there, and it all just becomes a giant mess. Stepping back from that and kind of reimagining, all right, what could we actually do if we were really thinking about this cleanly and then moving towards digital transformation? Of course, that's one of the things we see from many, many, many of our customers. But one of the big enablements of that is actually automation, and network automation in particular is one of the things that we're seeing that's going to enable some of those forward-leaning use cases that I was talking about at the top, where you really do need to have ultra low latency that extends, from servers that are sitting in the network all the way up to an end device. And that might actually mean breaking up the processing that's done for this service and having different parts of it at different areas of the network. That's disaggregated compute, which companies are working on right now. And so, but this means a collaboration of both the stuff being carried over the fixed part and the stuff being carried over the mobile part, so that everything comes together as a single service for the end user. And so this is a much more intense level of, this is beyond human capabilities, actually. So automation is going to be absolutely key for not only sustainability, but also moving into these new use cases. And so I'm proud to say that we actually just won an award, a 5G World Award, for our network anomaly detection service, which we've implemented first with Vodafone Italy, and they discovered that with the automation, we could actually let the automation handle 80% of the anomalies that are detected in the network. And that includes an awful lot of the shifting capacity demand stuff that happens on a daily basis. And that frees the humans to focus on the 20% that's really crazy and needs human attention. So overall, the end users get better service. And that's the kind of thing that everybody wins. And so those are the kinds of things that we're working on and we're seeing.
Wow. Excellent, Leslie. Always love the passion with which you describe each of those.
It's also exciting.
Exactly. Great, Leslie. Thank you for that. Paul, same question to you. And I would also just like to add another one, which we've got from the audience, which maybe you can weave in. Same question. What are the new digital technologies and how are they helping address some of the challenges that you described? At the same time, how are these newer technologies also helping make the network greener? I'm just building on what maybe Leslie spoke about earlier. So maybe if you can answer both discretely or together, that will be great.
Sure, yeah. Okay, no, really good question. If I think about the challenges of migrating very large numbers of customers from legacy to new networks and products, it's that ability to do it at scale, which is key. And this is where digital tools can definitely play an important role. I think, intelligent migration tools that are automated and data-driven, we can use data to select customers for different migration paths and journeys based on certain characteristics. So I guess if I give an example, when we're moving from legacy PSTN networks to voice over IP products, there's a range of customers from those who use the landline every day to those who never even plug it in. So a migration tool that can use data on landline usage to select the right product for the right customer is really useful. So those customers that are landline engaged, they actually make use of the landline. They can be offered a replacement solution using digital voice, so a voice over IP solution that kind of looks like a landline. It just plugs into the router. For those who never use the landline, we can offer them a broadband-only product, and they use the voice either on mobile or some other method. So it's about using those digital tools to tailor the offer to the customer, and then to have an automated provisioning journey kind of sitting off the back of that. I think in terms of how that leads to sustainability and a sort of greener situation, I think the big benefit comes from actually switching the old legacy networks off. I mean, our PSTN network in BT, it runs off a huge number of local exchanges all over the country. So the quicker we can turn that off and get our products over to IP, the faster you make those power savings, and therefore there's knock-on effects on sustainability as well. So I'd say these tools allow us to do things a lot quicker, and therefore you can switch off the old networks earlier and then get that that saving in terms of the environment there.
Excellent. Thank you, Paul. Thank you so much. Ritesh, I will come to you. The same question plus one more. The same question in terms of, from your perspective, what are the technologies that are helping mitigate these challenges? At the same time, we had a specific question for you, right? You spoke about some very interesting enterprise use cases that have been already delivered. But in your mind, or what is your pet project? What do you really want accomplished in the next 2 years from an enterprise use case perspective? So please, both of them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess everyone's already spoken so much about the I mean, at JIO, obviously, we're doing everything, all of those things. I mean, automation is obviously one clear way. I mean, Arun spoke about it, Paul and others spoke about it. Is one way to eliminate human errors and malicious intent. I mean, it also helps us improve time to market, remove errors, reduce costs. I mean, many places in the network we don't have the power we want, and so we are forced to look for greener solutions, and obviously we are looking at reducing our carbon footprint and improving the network constantly. I mean, Arun spoke about it. I mean, if we are gonna not reduce our costs, we can't obviously offer value solutions to the customer at the right price point. We are also using a lot of AI and ML now to foresee deployments and configurations, and also to remove errors so that we can play out scenarios in the network without actually deploying them. So we are focused on that. For what I would like to see, I mean, this is not something we are currently doing, but we want every solution we provide or every connection we provide to have a base cybersecurity included with it. But having said that, one thing we want to see, not only us, but any operator do, at least I want to see, is just like, when you purchase something on Amazon, when you purchase something on Flipkart, you get, like, you order a phone, that phone comes over and you're not so worried about it. Why? Because it's covered by insurance. So if the phone is lost, you don't have to pay for it. And the same thing we want to do for every connection. I mean, there are companies out there which are offering cyber insurance, and we can also do that with connection. So every connection we provide, we can have like some sort of base coverage with that even if you lose data or if you lose money because of something happened in your network, that will be covered by insurance. And we want to have cyber insurance included as part. I mean, the innovation doesn't always have to be just technology, and we put better firewalls, cloud firewalls, or firewall SASE everywhere. Yeah, we understand all of those, but I mean, sometimes people do take your computer or plug a USB, and malware gets on your system. What can you do? As a service provider, you can't stop people from plugging USBs anywhere. And so we can do, but we can do other solutions like offer cyber insurance, offer antivirus, and advanced things. So we want to get that done, and hopefully over the next couple of years, you'll see that as part of every offering which comes from service providers.
Wow, excellent. I think that's really amazing and very unique the way you described it. And I'm sure the Volkswagens of the world, while deploying a 5G network, would definitely come to somebody who offers this along with the package rather than some of the others, right? Amazing. I think that's a brilliant idea that you spoke about. Look forward to seeing it in practice. Great. Thank you, Ritesh, for that. Arun, I'll come to you for my next question. And there's so much going on, right? We spoke about challenges. We spoke about newer things, sustainability. I'm sure. And we spoke about network equipment guys, network service providers, ecosystem players. I wanted your specific viewpoint on, are you seeing the network companies become more collaborative? How are they really leveraging the ecosystem for different either areas of expertise or specific things, etc. So what is your view on leveraging different players within the ecosystem?
Yes, so I think definitely the virtualization, disaggregation, the cloudification, all of these are moving the vendor ecosystem from being an unipolar vendor ecosystem to a multipolar vendor ecosystem, which is more agile and more faster in terms of introduction of innovation. So, which means that the operators and as well as the ecosystem can introduce new and innovative products and services at a much faster clip. One of the biggest problems with the telcos is it takes 18 to 26, 20 to 24 months to introduce a new technology or a new service. And that, whereas if you look at our brothers from the web world, they are able to roll out new features in a matter of weeks, if not days. And pandemic also has accelerated this. Today, the release cycles, even on the enterprise side, are now in weeks, not months. New features. So the ecosystem players will have to learn to work with each other, be able to integrate and bring in this CI/CD technology that is now very common in the web world, in the enterprise world, into the telco world. So for this, a new set of ecosystem players, new kind of collaboration, and more open players with more standardized interfaces, and people like us who can integrate it and make it work, because it is not going to be easy in the first few years until this becomes more standard and usable. And we also create certain level of tolerance for error in the beginning. So those are the kind of thing that I see as a big change and that is coming in. And of course, companies like Jio and Radisys are more willing to openly share and learn and collaborate. So you're kind of creating a partnership across operators, more closer partnership across operators, and more openness. I think that's what I think is a big change that is coming in on the ecosystem.
Excellent, Arun. Aashu, you've been very close to this, one of the key contributors within the ecosystem. According to you, what is your view on leveraging ecosystem providers? Where do you want to see it headed, or where do you think it has already picked up?
So in terms of our view on leveraging ecosystem provider, we don't exist without it. So it's that imperative for us, right? Not to quote Kantian ethics, but there is a phrase you can Google called categorical imperative, but I won't go into philosophy. The bottom line is this: Cyient is a solutions and services company. We don't make products, and because we don't make products, there is a good and bad part of it. Obviously, the good part is that we are not married to a vendor or an OEM viewpoint, right? With all due respect, Leslie, you're on the call. If I was Nokia and a customer came to me and Nokia made all the piece parts, guess what? I'll be highly compelled to push Nokia gear. And if I was an Ericsson, I'll behave the exact same way. And I could use a Fidelity and a Merrill Lynch example, but you get the point, right? We, being vendor neutral, can actually take the reverse view. We begin to look at the customer's problem. Can this be solved using an open source 5G core? Are these guys trying to connect 1 million things, or are they trying to connect 10,000 things? Right? What's the scale required? Does the round trip latency have to be 2 milliseconds, or is it okay if the round trip latency can be a second or two? Given those constraints, what is the most cost effective and most time effective solution? And our intelligence or our value comes from the fact that we can stitch one together using 4 different piece parts, if it has to be 4 different piece parts. And there are cases where we're working with one company's core and the other company's RAN and the third company's devices, and we are making that marriage happen. So to us, to answer your question, ecosystem is absolutely critical. and the openness, and thankfully that is the direction where we are moving, right? The initiatives like Open RAN, CRAN, etc. A lot of these are intent at decoupling, right? And while the high level push may be coming from large CSPs, like BT, AT&T, etc., to make sure that they don't get a vendor lock-in. From our perspective, that gives us the ability to do the right mix and match and create a solution that is coming in from a customer's point of view, not a vendor's point of view, right? So that's what I have to say on the
excellent
ecosystem players.
Thank you, Aashu. So I'm actually out of time, but I really want to take this one question. So we will do it as a rapid fire. I'll start with Leslie, move to Arun, Ritesh, Paul, and Aashu. So the question is, fast forward, peering into the future, what do you think would be the next big thing in telecom?
I'm going to build on Ashu's answer, which is partnerships. Because operators and our entire industry is guilty of thinking that we can do it on our own. We are now getting to the point where the new services that are going to be called upon for our networks to deliver are going to be things like these analytics and these very specialized kind of AI and machine learning sorts of things that are not coming from the telecommunications industry. And there is no way that you can tell me that, phone company A is suddenly a visual analytics expert. No, you are going to have to partner with others to create these ecosystems I've been talking about at the edge, and then to deliver the services. And so our entire ecosystem is going to have to get better at being friends and working with others and multiple players in single contracts, exactly as Ash was just describing. And that's actually something that's a path that we're on as well. You were absolutely right, Ash, when you said, you come to Nokia, yeah, Nokia is likely to recommend Nokia equipment, but in terms of the partnerships, that's actually where we really get the true richness of the new things that genuinely our industry is going to be able to provide for the world.
Excellent, Leslie. Arun, the rapid fire for you. Next big thing in telecom.
So the voice and media and what we call as extreme reality, that is a combination of both voice and media, and the related analytics and what the operators can do to measure and make value out of these, the analytics and information that because operators are the primary pipe and conduit of delivering these, and their ability to analyze and create usable information out of these media content that is heavily XR content, and able to deliver better services and even value to the consumers is going to be extremely relevant for operators. So I'm focusing more on the operator side of it. So which means that the operators will need to be able to process the multimedia rich content much better and be able to make sense of it. This is where their focus that they're going to spend most of their focus on.
Thank you, Arun. Ritesh, over to you.
For service providers, I would say fixed wireless access is the next big thing for us. The technology is not new, but it has never been pervasive. But now with 5G millimeter wave solutions, we should see a rapid rise in home connectivity delivered over 5G. And of course, it will benefit smart cities, IoT, machine-to-machine, autonomous cars, telemedicine, and other things. So fixed wireless access is the next thing. We'll see a boom in and a rise in 5G connections for that.
Excellent. Thank you, Ritesh. Paul?
Yeah, interesting question. I think for me, one thing would be intelligent use of enhanced connectivity across fixed and mobile, combined with sort of security services to completely remove the need for anyone to be physically present in any given scenario. So I think the pandemic, has started us on that journey. So things like doctor's appointments, legal appointments, company AGMs, things like that. You don't have to be physically there, which in the past wasn't considered an option. But I think taking that to the next level, I think. So you're not thinking, have I got the right device? What about the connectivity? What happens when I go from the office to the street to the train? It's making that seamless, and you don't. Unless you want to, you don't have to be physically present in a given location. You can do anything from anywhere.
Perfect. Thank you. Ashu, you have the final word on this.
Well, if I was any good at prediction, my 401k will tell you, I'm not. But it's a hard business to be predictors. But one thing I'd say, purpose-built private networks. We will see a proliferation of companies that you never thought were telcos to be telcos. You would think a tractor maker would become a telco. Guess what? They're already on their journey to become a telco. So things are becoming cheap. Regulators are opening up spectrum. You don't have to pay $1 billion for that spectrum. You can operate it in an unlicensed band. And the transformative nature of 5G, 4G, 5G to be able to do industrial automation. We will see so many new use cases come about, and so many new companies you never thought were telcos actually be telcos.
Excellent.
I'll leave it to you.
Thank you so much, Ashu. We've had the really, really exciting session, high energy session. I'll just thank all of you. Thank you all so much for participating. I'm sure we can meet more often at other avenues. Back to you, Natalia, to please help us close this excellent session.